This evening we're going to briefly talk about an external discipline, basically truthfulness, speaking the truth, being true. And when we are communicating things that are considered to be truth, I don't want to say it's a touchy subject necessarily, but we all see things from our perspective. So whether it's our past experiences, whether it's the religion that we follow, or if we don't follow a religion, our mindset has been conditioned through our thoughts, our beliefs. What we believe to be true today, as we sit here in this room, maybe years from now, that would have changed, that would have evolved. So when we talk about speaking truth, we want to consider that it's not necessarily from our perspective, because I do believe that there is definitely a universal truth, but as we're coming or growing to that, we have to understand that our truth may be a changing thing. It may be a process. So considering that what we perceive to be true may not be another person's truth, we may want to consider the following points that I'm going to make before we, I don't want to say criticize, but offer an opinion. You know, sometimes I might think I'm helping and I'm going to tell you this because I really believe this to be true and I care about you and I want to help you. Well, there's certain considerations that we may want to take into account. So the first one is it true? And that's going to be to the best of our knowledge at the time. So there is a thing where they say in courts or even on certain papers, whatever, they'll say as you're signing, to the best of your knowledge, it's true and accurate. Well, we can really do that in honesty, not coloring it by our biases, by our preferences, by, well, this guy hurt my feelings and so I'm going to say such and such to him. I know that's not really the truth as I understand it, but it'll stick it to him. Those are the things that we can be mindful not to fall into. So, to the best of our knowledge, is what we're saying true? The other thing is it necessary? I think we can all think of a situation where something we perceive to be true is going on, and, well, we want to share this, we want to speak it, but is it necessary? If I'm standing in the line in the post office and the lady next to me has a really ugly hat on, or I think it's a really ugly hat, you know, and maybe we strike up a conversation and she asks me about her hat. Well, is it really necessary for me to say, that one is ugly? No, that's not something that's necessary. So, is it true to the best of our knowledge? Is it necessary? The third thing is it useful? What is the intent? What is the purpose in offering this truth? How is it helping my neighbor? How is it helping the environment? How is it assisting another person? So let's say, for example, and we can all think of our own examples, but let's say we're in a situation where something is going on and, well, if I say this, it's true, it's not a lie, but is it going to be useful to that next person? Okay? Sometimes the truth does hurt. Sometimes we have to say things that are not necessarily pleasant, but if we know we're doing it from a place of love, and this goes back to that first principle we were talking about, non-harming. If I now am saying something to somebody and it's useful and it may not necessarily make them feel good, but it is in some way to benefit them, am I courageous enough to speak that truth? And is it kind? You know, sometimes it's more appropriate for us to remain silent than to maybe speak a harsh truth. So there's a delicate balance, though, because, and this is where I believe wisdom comes in, because we're not always going to know, well, is this the time or is this not the time? But when we are putting certain things into our mental space, again, going back to those attributes, wanting to be loving, compassionate, forgiving, patient, when that is our mode of operating, then we're going to have more of a foundation where the things that we speak won't be just because I want to be a know-it-all, I want to get back at this person, but we'll be able to attain that balance. Let's turn to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 20. And in Ephesians 4:20, so it says, "But that is not how you learned about the Messiah, assuming you heard him and were taught by him. Because the truth is in Yeshua, You took off your former way of life, the old man that is corrupted by deceitful desires. All right, so we're putting off our former ways, the former desires, as we're growing into this new person, as we're transforming. Okay, so you took off your former way of life, the old man, and we can, again, look at that old man as a carnal nature. What we're looking to do now is bridge the gap between our lower nature and our higher nature as we're moving forward. That is corrupted by deceitful desires. You are being renewed in the spirit of your minds. And we've talked about the mind a lot. You put on the new man, the one created according to Yahweh's likeness, in righteousness and purity of the truth. And again, if we're transforming, if we're putting on that new nature, not the one that's going to be motivated by the fruits of the flesh, but the fruits of the spirit, now we're taking on that likeness, that image of Yahweh. Let's always remember, go back to the attributes of Yahweh. Let's go ahead and turn to Zechariah chapter 8, verse 16 and 17. So as we're being renewed in the likeness of Yahweh, and we're putting on compassion, patience, mercy, long-suffering, we also have to remember that, and I kind of skipped ahead because I wanted us to read verse 25, where it talked about being members of one another. In that, we can think about the golden rule. We're going to want to treat the next person or speak the truth to the next person in a manner that we ourselves would like to receive that. So in Zechariah chapter 8, let's look at verse 16 and 17. These are the things you must do. Speak truth to one another. Tender, honest, and peaceful judgments in your gates. Do not put evil in your hearts against your neighbor. And do not love perjury, for I hate all this. That is Yahweh's declaration. So again, we want to think about non-harming. We want to think about speaking the truth in love, knowing that when we approach another person, we're doing it from a place of, how am I to assist my neighbor? How can I assist the next person? How can I help a situation? What can I do to, if you will, make the world a better place? I find that there is a freedom that comes with that when your mantra is that you want to be compassionate, you want to be faithful, you want to be merciful. There is a freedom that comes that allows you to be able to speak truth because you're coming from a perspective not, well, I'm saying this for my advantage, but because this is truly as you see it, and in that, hoping to assist somebody else. And that's what I like to share today.